Part 2, which relate to the discharge of ballast water. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I call the honourable member Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to take a call on Part 2 of this bill, and I've got a couple of questions for the Minister in relation to the way in which Part 2 around ballast water relates to New Zealand's activity in the exclusive economic zone, and in particular in terms, well, it is, Mr. Ardern's right to say it is a big area. That's a good, clear way of describing it, Mr. Ardern. Big. That's correct. Exclusive economic zone, very, very large area, and currently the subject of a piece of legislation before the House, the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill. And my question for the Minister is around the relationship of this Biosecurity Law Reform Bill with that other piece of legislation, the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill. Because there are a number of areas in which, reading through particularly the new Part 19A that's been included here, which I think have some issues sitting alongside that Exclusive Economic Zone Bill. And it actually starts with the title of the new Part 19A, Protection of Marine Environment from Ballast Water. Because one of the issues with the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill is the absence of language around protection and preservation of the marine environment in that bill. And in fact, the Minister, Amy Adams, in the second reading debate, spent a significant amount of time telling the House that kind of language, which comes from the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, wasn't going to be necessary in any legislation around the Exclusive Economic Zone bill. And so I am somewhat confused to find here in this new Part 19A a whole section entitled Protection of the Marine Environment, given that that language is now not going to appear in the Exclusive Economic Zone legislation, and that specific area is mentioned as part of Section 24.6b(2), which tells us that subsection 1 applies to the territorial sea of New Zealand, the internal waters of New Zealand, or the exclusive economic zone of New Zealand. New Zealand's ability to make law in the exclusive economic zone actually arises from the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The fact that we are signatories and have ratified that convention is the very thing that allows us to make law on that. So what we on this side of the House are looking for here is consistency in the way that the law treats the exclusive economic zone. There are a number of pieces of legislation that will affect New Zealand or any economic activity in our exclusive economic zone. One of them is this piece of law. The other is the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill itself. And thirdly, there are other pieces of legislation like the Crown Minerals Act, for instance. So I think the Minister could easily take a call here and let us know what work he's done, or perhaps even the Minister responsible for the bill, Amy Adams, could take a call and let us know what work has been done to make these two pieces of legislation consistent. Because as we go down the further subsections here, to Section 246C around offences, I notice in there a set of fines that have been listed for the discharge of ballast water. In this case, it could be in the exclusive economic zone. These fines are actually quite different from the set of fines that are now in the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill. And in fact, on this side of the House, we've got concerns about whether or not the fines regime and the penalties regime within the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill is actually sufficient, and whether it is what we need for the protection and preservation of our marine environment. So again, Mr. Chair, there is a question of consistency here between the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill and this bill in terms of the penalties for offences as listed in Section 246C. So the Minister might like to take a call and just advise whether or not we're going to have to come back again to the House to reform the biosecurity law one more time because of the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill, which is currently before the House. And I hope that the government's taken some time to look at it. I'm sure Mr. Ardern's been studying the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill clause by clause just before bed. When he's got the cocoa, he gets out the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill and he says, is this consistent with the Biosecurity Law Reform Bill? Absolutely. That's how good my life is, Mr. Ardern. That's what we do on the side of the House. We look through the legislation and we ask ourselves, is the government being consistent here? And when I look at the offence provisions that are in Section 246C, I think if they sit alongside the penalties regime and the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill, we do have some inconsistency. Mr. Chair, the other point that I wanted to make was really around the question of the Director's powers to investigate a discharge or the escape of ballast water. water. And I note that obviously we have brand new sections here, and I wasn't on the select committee, something I regret, Mr Ardern, that I wasn't there to go through these matters in depth, but these are quite extensive powers that are being given to the Director of the Ministry for Primary Industries here. Mr Chair, just
the Honourable
briefly.
Member Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. These powers are quite extensive that are now listed out in section 246E, and I would hope that the Minister could inform us as to whether or not these powers are contained in any other part of the Director's responsibilities. They seem to me to obviously be it's an important step to take to have somebody responsible for protecting the marine environment from the discharge of ballast water, and on this side of the House we obviously support the intent of that, but extending the Director's powers in this way is something that we always need to watch in terms of the power of senior public servants if they're given power to effectively put people in a position where they're charged with offences that have fines of around up to $200,000. So they are the 2 points that I was just keen to make and seek the Minister's feedback on.
I call the Honourable Member, the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Chairman, and it is very appropriate to have